At the heart of Beijing, there is a square so vast it can hold 1 million people, and a secret so heavy it still bends history. On one spring night in 1989, students filled that space with hope, banners, and songs. By dawn, the songs were gone, the banners were trampled, and the square, once alive, fell into a silence so complete that an entire nation was taught never to speak of it again. This is not just a story about a protest, it's about what happens when hope stands in front of tanks and refuses to move. On April 15, 1989, Hu Yaobang died suddenly. To the Chinese Communist Party, he was a former official. To students, intellectuals, and reformists, he was something far more dangerous, a symbol of change. They came quietly at first. A few flowers, a few candles, handwritten notes left beneath his portrait in Tiananmen Square. Grief hung in the air, heavy, restrained, but unmistakable. Then the grief began to speak. Students started asking questions the country had learned not to ask. Why was corruption everywhere? Why were voices silenced? Why did progress feel like a promise that never arrived? Within days, thousands filled the square. Within weeks, the thousands became hundreds of thousands, and then over 1 million. Tiananmen Square transformed into a living city. Tents lined the stone ground. Students debated politics through the night. Songs echoed across the square at dawn. For the first time in decades, fear loosened its grip, and the government said nothing. No crackdown, no dialogue, just silence. That silence felt like permission. On April 19th, Communist Party leaders appeared in the square. They spoke softly. They urged students to go home. Some even looked apologetic. Many students cried, not from fear, but from hope. They believed they were being heard. They were wrong. The next day, Beijing was placed under martial law. Troops began moving toward the city, but the protesters didn't leave. They stayed. Night after night, tension thickened the air. Parents begged their children to come home. Rumors spread of an incoming assault, yet students linked arms and held their ground, because surely the army wouldn't fire on its own people. In the early hours of June 4, 1989, that belief died. From the edges of Beijing, tens of thousands of soldiers advanced. Armored vehicles rolled through streets packed with civilians. People shouted, some tried to block the tanks, others ran. Then the gunfire began. Without warning, without mercy, shots tore through the night, crowds scattered in panic, military vehicles plowed forward, crushing anything in their path. Witnesses later described the sound, not screams, not engines, but a constant mechanical thunder, like the city itself was being torn apart. By the time the army reached Tiananmen Square, resistance was impossible. And yet, one man stepped forward, alone, unarmed, standing directly in front of a line of tanks. The machine stopped. The man refused to move. For a brief, impossible moment, it looked like courage had won. Then hands reached out from the crowd and pulled him away. His identity was never confirmed, his fate unknown. By morning, the square was cleared. Blood washed into the drains, tents burned, banners disappeared. But the violence didn't end with the sunrise. In the days that followed, authorities hunted anyone connected to the protests. Students vanished from dormitories. Activists were dragged from their homes. Some were imprisoned. Some were tortured. Some were executed for counter-revolutionary crimes. Families were never given answers. The Chinese government later claimed around 200 deaths. Independent estimates suggest thousands, possibly more than 10,000. The exact number may never be known, because what followed was not just a crackdown, it was an erasure. Tiananmen Square became a forbidden memory. Textbooks removed it, search engines blocked it, public discussion vanished. An entire generation grew up unaware of what happened in the center of their capital. But memory is stubborn, and sometimes history survives not in records, but in silence, because the loudest truths are often the ones a government works hardest to erase.